will we allow a veteran to suffer or die waiting for care they so richly deserve? These are our great people. We need to clean out the corruption in government.
Donald Trump calling for veterans to come first while outlining his plans to reform the Veterans Affairs Department. But critics claim that Mr. Trump's plan would lead to the privatization of the Veterans Administration. Let's discuss it with a couple of veterans. First of all, we have with us former intelligence officer and former advisor to General David Petraeus, retired Army Colonel Derek Harvey. And also with us, my old colleague from Capitol Hill, former Congressman Michael Patrick Flanagan, who is the president of Flanagan Consulting. Gentlemen, we thank you both for your time tonight as you join us from Newsmax, Washington. Colonel Harvey, let me start with you. What would real reform within the Veterans Administration look like to you?
I think two things, and Trump hit on two of them in his talk. One is, just like we use military health care and it's supplemented with what we call TRICARE, providing military members and retirees access to private sector health providers, we should have the same thing for those that are using the Veterans Administration. It's common sense, it's quality care, and it would be a great supplement.
So go ahead, yes, sir.
Number two is accountability. The Veterans Administration is full of significant problems, not just with appointments, but in providing quality care, particularly for soldiers of the modern era that are suffering from traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the like. And access to that is very difficult. Many of these VA centers are not accessible to a great number of our soldiers, and being able to access private providers supplemented would be a great step forward to benefit our veterans.
Michael Patrick Flanagan, maybe it's because you're born and reared in Chicago, you not only help make laws, but you observe laws being made, which we've been warned against. The whole VA reform bill last time around, there was a huge loophole where basically guys who are unionized, you can't move against them. That to me seems to be a glaring error with the so-called reform we just saw in the past 18 months.
Well, you're exactly correct. And I think the word Trump used in his discussion was exactly right: corruption. It's corruption of careerism. It's corruption of an inability to understand that my priorities are the patient, are the service member, and not my own career, not what needs to happen. Congress gave them the ability to hire and fire SES and below as they saw fit. Whether two firings, no one was let go because it becomes a bureaucracy. And this, of course, is the Valhalla that the Democrats would love to go to: government-run and sponsored health care. And what the Republicans have warned for years, that it turns into a painful bureaucracy where people don't care about the patients. It's just another way to earn a check. And it's no, that would never happen. And of course, it has happened in the VA. And the only way around it is to break it up, break it down, and start again, which is essentially what Trump has said. We're going to go ahead and privatize a fair amount of this, at least insofar as insurance is concerned, to let veterans get the best health care they can. How can anyone be against letting them get the best health care that they can get? And it might not be provided by a government bureaucrat. Well, that would be too bad. But it's still got to be the best they can get.
And of course, we know that policy is predicated upon politics. We're going to talk some politics now, opening up the phones at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Because we haven't had a chance to take calls earlier tonight, we know there's a lot on your mind. Let's begin, ironically, in Clintonville, Wisconsin, where Ron has been waiting patiently. Hi, Ron.
Hi, JD, and the gentleman with you. I have a comment on that last segment about Jeb Bush talking about Donald Trump and betraying the American voters. There would be no wall or no ban on Muslims. Maybe people ought to listen to Jeb Bush, and he seems to be an authority on this because he took a pledge to support the Republican nominee. If anybody betrays anybody, it seems like Jeb Bush would know all about betrayal.
Well, let me go to our panel, and let me start with Michael Patrick Flanagan. Mike, you and I have been in elections. We've won them. We've lost them. Sometimes it happens in the primary process. Some of us even had dreams of going to the Oval Office. It doesn't work out. It's not the end of the world, and it's not time to go home, or at the very least, It's not time to mouth off against the presumptive nominee of your party. Will Jeb and the Bush family ever get this straight? Are they going to continue to be the never-Trumpers, the anti-Trumpers, and hard to believe about the family, but the veritable skunks of the Garden Party?
Here's what I view with the Bushes, and it'll take just a second here, but let me muscle through it. I think about 20 years ago, and a little bit longer for the Democrats, both parties were overtaken by the globalists, by the internationalists. And the Bushes were the leaders of that. They've pledged themselves to have a certain international flavor to them. Now, you had a Republican international flavor or a Democratic international flavor, but it was pretty much the same argument on both sides. And that's why the public was kind of confused as to the difference between them. You know, McCain, Romney, they're all kind of the same. Well, now you have two nominees, two candidates in this election. Trump and Sanders at least sounded like they were not about the globalization. And they were wildly popular. And this is what the Bushes would rather have globalization than be good Republicans. And I think that's really the bottom line of it. And a lot of the Washingtonians are in that same box. They got nowhere to go. They have the moral superiority displayed in preening ways like George Will has and others. And they're failing. The party has rejected them, but the Americans have rejected them of both parties. And that's the problem that they got in the future. I don't think they have an island to go to.
Back to the phones at 1-877-639-7629, 1-877-Newsmax, to Liberty Hill, Texas, for Fernando. Fernando, understand you want to talk about Mr. Trump and veterans.
Mr. Haywood, yes. I am a veteran, 22 years in the Army. I served in Desert Storm. Now, the reason why I'm calling is I understand about this VA situation, okay? We need to clean it up. We need a strong leader in there. We need Donald Trump, and I hope he gets a strong military leader as his vice president to help us. We're hurting. We're hurting over here.
Well, at the very least, Fernando, there ought to be a strong military leader in charge of the VA. And let me turn to Colonel Harvey. You know, it's been said, the irony is the Pentagon runs, yes, there's a bureaucracy, but there's a military chain of command. Is it high time for that same type of command structure to be part of the VA, Colonel Harvey?
It may be the case, but we've had over 2 different administrations significant problems with the Veterans Administration, and it has not taken care of our veterans. I've seen too many soldiers, Marines, and airmen who have real issues, who are not able to work through the process of the bureaucracy, and they're not taken care of, and they struggle day in and day out. And if people understood and saw the misery that is out there and the lack of care, we need real change, and Trump will bring change if we support someone like Hillary who doesn't recognize this real need, the real tragedy that is taking place. We're not going to get the real change we need. If we care about our veterans, we're going to support Donald Trump in this case.
Well, let's go back to the phones now to the low country of South Carolina, to Charleston, to get comments from Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you this evening?
Fine, thank you.
Good, good. My comment on this is, the Veterans Administration, as I was saying earlier, is a bureaucracy. Now, on small scales, bureaucracy works fairly well. Large scales, it is a complete disaster because it gets all in its own way. What I have seen here in Charleston is a complete difference from what, say, I'm not going to mention where I had a real bad experience, but it's just a state north of here. And,
all right, my native North Carolina. I figured that out.
My native North Carolina
well, let me ask you this, Jeff, very quickly. What makes the difference for you in Charleston?
I think the difference down here is that the people really seem to care about what they're doing. Now, they're in close location to the MUSC, and they work with them down here, but they actually seem to care about the veterans coming in there. They don't call them, they call us veterans, but they call us patients. They call us people. They are familiar with our families. They're familiar with us. You know, it's a personal thing here.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for the call because we do hear from veterans. Michael Patrick Flanagan, you're a Desert Storm vet like Fernando is, who called us earlier. And there are pockets within the VA, some of the groundbreaking research, some things that are really successful. But again, as Jeff was pointing out, bureaucracy just tends to breed inertia and inefficiency. You get the last word, Mike, 20 seconds, make them count.
It's not even the fact that they're bureaucrats. It's that they don't care. I have my first allegiances to my job, to my pension, to when's my next days off. What's my union got to say about this? It is not about patient care 24/7 like it must be. You have to go to the medical industry to do that. You're going to have to privatize it in some way.
All right, gentlemen, we thank you very much for your insights and analysis tonight from Newsmax Washington. Coming up, we go to Cleveland. John Gizzi is there to tell us about the upcoming convention.